Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar for getting to know the OneFile ePortfolio service for STP Training Officers. My name is Alex Levine. I'm the Education and Digital Systems Manager here at the National School of Healthcare Science. I'm joined by Stuart Sutherland today, who is the National School of Healthcare Science Head of Digital. Most of you are probably new training officers for this year's incoming STP cohort, although there may be one or two of you in there that are just here to get a refresher, as we always invite all of our training officers back every year for a refresher in OneFile. So just a brief rundown of what we're going to cover today. We're going to let you know everything you need to know about getting through OneFile, including how to access your trainee portfolios, how to sign off on training activities and observe assessments, how to access Turnitin, how to create training plans, how to undertake portfolio reviews, and how to update your own account should you need to. So without any more delay, we've got quite a bit to get through in our 1 hour, and we hope to reserve a few minutes at the end for some questions that you may have. So initially, we're going to jump straight into OneFile. And as I go through the presentation, we'll be dropping some links into the side chat that will help you, that are sort of relevant links to what I'm actually talking about. So you should have this one already, but to access OneFile, you go to login.onefile.co.uk, and when you enter in your account information, which you should have already had set up by now, you'll be faced with the home screen. You can see here there's a couple of different announcements on the home page, one directly from OneFile about a system update, and we have one announcement actually that we posted at the school a few days ago. If a school posts an announcement, you should assume that it's quite important. So if you do see one posted by the National School of Healthcare Science, please take a moment to read through it and make sure you understand everything on that announcement that we've made. Clicking continue will go to our assessor homepage, and you can see up here is my name. That's obviously not my name, but this is my friend who doesn't actually exist, that I pretend to be whenever I do webinars. Oscar Watson, he's an assessor. You won't see the title training officer in OneFile itself. That's because OneFile doesn't discern between training officers and other assessors that will be allocated to your trainees. So you're all called assessors. The only difference really in OneFile about being a training officer is that you will receive a notification from OneFile when a module is 100% complete and OneFile is asking you to do a final review of the module. And you will also be responsible for signing off on any new nominated assessors that the school is unaware of already. So it'll be your responsibility to make sure that you're happy for that new assessor to be an assessor on OneFile. Up here, you've got a little clipboard icon that if I just zoom in up there, you've got a little clipboard icon. This tells me that I have some tasks outstanding that require my attention. And over here is a little message center that tells me that I've got a message here that's from my trainee, Bianca, that there's something in her training plan that I need to just acknowledge. First thing I want to do is show you how to access your own profile. So if I click on my name and then click on profile, I will get to my user profile, and I can add in any information that I want to here. I'm not going to go through that at the moment, but what I really want to draw your attention to is the email preferences. So you will have noted that the email address associated with your OneFile account was the one that we received from your trainee. You can add and amend as necessary as many email addresses that you want into your assessor account. By doing that, you just click add new email, and this isn't going to replace, that won't replace your existing email address. It will simply add to the email addresses that are associated with your account. If you have a primary email address, that will obviously be the default address that is associated to your OneFile account. So if you needed to do a password reset or something, that would go through that account. But I want to draw your attention to this little tick box here that says email alerts. And then if you just follow my cursor down here, to this little tick box that says, send me an email alert every time something happens. We strongly advise every user in OneFile to tick that box because by default, OneFile will not send you any email alerts that a trainee has sent work for you. So you need to opt into all of those email alerts. If you don't opt into them, and we have years and years of evidence to back this up, if you don't tick that email alert box, we found that there are assessors and training officers out there that just allow their own trainees' work to just pile up for 10, 12, 18 months in their accounts because they think that there's nothing for them to review, but that's because they haven't opted into the email alerts. So if you opt into email alerts, anytime a trainee sends work over to you, you will get an email sent to whichever of your email accounts you've ticked this box for here for email alerts. So please do that to make sure that your trainees are keeping up to date with all of their work. If I go back to my home screen here, you can see that I've got a little collapsible menu there on the side. So if I go back to my home screen, I'm going to show you through the various dashboards on my home screen. We're going to start with the assessor dashboard. And the first thing is we've got a little meeting in our calendar here. This isn't linked to Outlook or anything. This is just whatever meetings we've actually set to take place within the OneFile piece of software itself. You can see that I've got a few tasks here that by default, the tasks are set to 2 weeks turnaround. So I've got 2 tasks due next week and 3 that I need to act on immediately. And I've got a little chart here of the trainees that I am allocated. Here's how they've been logging in and using OneFile. I'm just going to collapse that down and show you what we call the trainee dashboard. Now, this is the easiest way to get to any of your trainee accounts is just scroll down the page to your trainee dashboard. And you can see I've got 3 trainees here, and I'm going to be focusing on Bianca Rasmussen today. If you have any trainees that are what we call archived, which means they've left the program or they've completed the program, you can see them as well by clicking this Show Archived Trainees button, and you can see that my screen refreshed, and now I can see all of my other trainees who may have been on program at some point but are no longer. You can see here that I can access, I can get some very quick parts of my trainees portfolio, namely her submissions list, her training plans, and the gap analysis, which I will, I'll go into a little bit of detail of that in a bit. But if I want to access the main portfolio, I just simply click on the trainee's name itself, and I'm on my trainees portfolio homepage. Now, the first time you open this up, you may see something like this with a big red bar across the top and lots of tiles scattered around here. I would highly suggest going over to Simple View and ticking Simple View, and it groups everything into sort of tabs into its logical place within the portfolio itself. So just getting around the trainee's portfolio, you can see her current progress is at 0%. Her overall target progress is 2%. I'll get into that in a little bit. Any active training plans that are pending, any submissions that have been sent or have been started to be created that have not been sent over yet for review. If we've got any portfolio reviews, and we've got activity, I can manage my trainees portfolio, I can view my trainees progress, and I can see what forms they have in their portfolio. These are sort of forms that they can manage their portfolio with. You wouldn't need to worry about that. Those are forms that they use to interact with the school directly. I'm going to focus on our progress for the moment. So the 2 ways really of looking at progress are on a gap analysis and a progress view. And I'm going to focus on the progress view for the time being. And you could see here when I click on Progress View, I've got a listing of all of the modules associated with my trainee. You can see some of them have small red bars. Now, that red bar indicates what the expected progress is within that particular module as of today compared to the start date of the training program and the completion date of that particular module. So, for instance, my rotational modules, the ones labeled as introduction modules, those are 1-year modules that we expect to be done in their first phase of training. So we have a start date of the 18th of September 2025 and completion date of that. Divide that by 100, those 365 days divided by 100. Every day we tick up I think every 3.6 days, then we get 1% ticked up in their completion. And the same thing happens with their expected overall portfolio completion. Now, again, if the first time you look at this screen, you just see a list of module codes, go ahead and click on Show Detailed View, and that will give you a complete listing of the module codes and their titles. The other way of looking at a trainee's progress is through their gap analysis. So if I click on gap analysis, we don't see anything at the beginning, but if I click on Show All and then Apply, this will refresh with a listing of all of the trainees' modules that are in their portfolio. And actually, what we're gonna, you can go granular here and look at each of the training activities and the progress within those individual training activities. The N indicates no progress made. I scroll down to the Introduction to Vascular module. You can see here we've got a training activity in progress here, which is indicated by the amber P for progress, or maybe pending, if you will. Nothing's been actually completed yet, but you can see that we've got a training activity there, and we also actually have a work-based assessment in the form of a DOPS type of assessment, which we'll talk about in a little while. The other modules, though, are not yet complete at all. So that's a quick navigation around a trainee's portfolio. What I want to get into, though, is really the meat of this presentation, and it is how to sign off various types of submissions and how to actually manage the trainee's portfolio, or help the trainee to manage their portfolio. So if I click on my task list here, I'm going to click on my clipboard, and you can see I've got a few tasks. I'm not going to worry about these three. I'm just going to focus on these two up here today. So the first one I want to do is look at this submission, vascular rotation training activity 1. So I'm going to go ahead and click that. Alternatively, I could view my entire task list by clicking on the tasks button on the side, and you can see I've got all my tasks listed here. Now, again, if I click on the task itself, it's going to open straight away to our submission. So this is what all of our trainee submissions look like. You're looking here at a training activity submission rather than a work-based assessment submission. We can see that the primary method is training activity, and our trainee has indicated that the title of this is Vascular Rotation Training Activity 1. If I scroll down just a bit, you can see that the trainee has indicated the competencies and standards, which is effectively the elements of the trainee's portfolio to which they are asking for their evidence to be reviewed against and applied to in their portfolio. So this trainee is requesting that the evidence that's been submitted will count against the attend a multidisciplinary team meeting and reflect on the meeting training activity in the vascular rotation. If I scroll down, you can see that there are two methods that the trainee can add evidence. Number one is a free text box, which we ask the trainees to not use in terms of submitting their evidence. And there's a very good reason for this, which I'll talk about in one moment. The other method of supplying evidence is through attached evidence. And you can see there's two pieces of evidence here that have been attached, both in Word document format. So if I want to review this evidence, I can. So if I just, if I click on that piece of evidence there, you can see that it's now downloaded. So what I will do is go ahead and open that up. And here it is. And, this is just a sample. So it's just a bunch of, lorem ipsum gibberish. But I'm going to review my evidence here. And this is the evidence that the trainee themselves has written. So if I'm happy with this evidence, okay, that's wonderful. But now I do need to take a look at this Turnitin, this Turnitin report here. So what is Turnitin? Well, Turnitin is, if I just pop over to my presentation, Turnitin checker in OneFile checks our trainees' work against various pieces of, hang on, where has that slide gone? There we are. The Turnitin checker checks all of our trainee evidence against billions of web pages and already published scientific works. It checks our trainees' work against other work that's been uploaded to Turnitin by students from around the world. And it also checks our trainees' evidence, again, instead have already been uploaded to OneFile by other healthcare science trainees on the training programs. And it checks it against text that may have been generated by AI bots such as ChatGPT. So when a trainee submits evidence in their portfolio, we have told them that they must run their evidence through the Turnitin checker before they send it to you for review. Now, this can be done in the format of a Word document or a PDF, or it could be a chunk of code, of Python code, if you will. It does have a little bit of trouble understanding Excel files, so we ask that the trainees don't use Excel files, but what it can scan is Word documents, PDFs created out of word processing documents, not scanned images. And it can also do PowerPoint presentations. Stuart, did you have something to add in there?
No, sorry, that was an accidental hand.
Okay. All right. So when a trainee submits their evidence to OneFile, a few hours later, they will receive a Turnitin report. So to access that report, they would, or you could click this link here. And you can see Stuart's just posted into the chat a link that really goes into some great detail about using the Turnitin checker in OneFile. So here we have a Turnitin report for the evidence that's been open here. You can see that Turnitin has placed a highlight here, and it can tell me that that particular piece of evidence was found in this document on this particular website, aspirante.com.au. If we want to, there are some times where you can actually view the entire full text of the document that was created. So here we are. So you can take a look and see whether that is actually relevant. Sometimes, it's perfectly normal for trainees to receive, a score because some of their work has been found in other work. But of course, if they're citing their work, then that could be okay. So you just go through the report and see. Now, if a trainee has a particularly high score, this is where we ask them to use that free text box. 8% similarity score due to various phrases that have all been cited. Well, okay, that's absolutely fine then. You may actually find that your trainee receives a 100% score in their evidence, and we've found usually that happens when a trainee has used their own work as part of their training activity evidence. When they are using their work at university and in the workplace, we ask them to run their work through their university's Turnitin server first before their workplace Turnitin server on OneFile. This is because universities are far more rigid with their rules and regulations regarding plagiarism. So if a trainee was to submit their own work in their university and then if they did that after they did it in the workplace, it would come back with 100% and they would be raked over the coals. Whereas at the school, we recognize that if a trainee has already provided their own evidence in a different setting, then we are more than happy to allow them to do that. So a Turnitin score, a high Turnitin score is okay, as long as they are justifying all of their scores here. So as we say, what is a reasonable similarity score? There is no ideal similarity percentage and there's no absolute threshold. There are some acceptable forms of similarity. Trainees, this is the guidance we give trainees for OneFile, that they should review their own similarity reports and they need to be prepared to justify it to their assessors. And work that is not professional and whose similarity cannot be justified, we strongly encourage you as training officers to return that back to your trainee and say, no, this is not good enough. You'll have to redo this evidence so that it appears to be your own work. It is worth noting that Turnitin, it's not a plagiarism detector. It is a similarity detector. So it's up to you as training officers and assessors to determine if the score that is given and the justification for the similarity score is that, in your opinion, a reasonable justification for that score. If it is, okay. If it's not, by all means, return it to the trainee. So just my last comments about Turnitin here. These are the 5 key steps we tell trainees. Number 1 is that they need to prepare their work properly and professionally. Number 2, they should only upload their final versions of their evidence documents to OneFile. Why? Because if they run a draft through Turnitin, when they run their final through Turnitin, it's going to come back with a massive similarity score against it. Number 3, they should use their Turnitin checker on their work before they submit their evidence to you, the training officer, or their assessor for sign-off. They need to review and understand how the similarity reports are generated for each of their files, and for all of their scores, they need to justify it within their free text. So if you just keep those notes from the trainee's perspective in mind when you review the OneFile reports. Okay, so back to the submission itself. Let's say everything is absolutely fine with this particular submission. I've reviewed the evidence. I've said, you know what, actually, this evidence is very good and accurately reflects the trainee's reflection on their multidisciplinary team meetings. So I want to sign off this work. I can leave my feedback here. If I've got any general feedback about this, I can leave it here. Very good evidence. It was great having you in the MDT. You presented some fascinating points. You know, I could leave whatever evidence whatever my feedback is there. And we strongly encourage you to always leave feedback, whether it's good feedback or bad feedback or constructive feedback, as we would like to say. Leave some feedback. Now, the last thing I want to do is make sure that this is added to my trainees portfolio that's mapped to the trainee's portfolio for progress. I can go straight down here and tick that box. However, if I just do that, then the submission will not actually go as a completed submission. I need to scroll all the way back up here. And do you remember when I pointed out this is the part of the portfolio that the trainee is requesting their evidence to be applied to? I need to tick that box to say, yes, this evidence does in fact meet this particular part of the trainee's portfolio. And you can see it's got a nice, lovely, dark hyperlink colored blue. Now I can scroll down. I'm going to tick my signature box there. And then I'm going to click this very unhelpfully labeled button, Save and Quit. And what that will do is save everything I've done here and go back to my trainee's portfolio. Now, you did notice that there was a resubmit button down there. If you were very eagle-eyed, you saw a red resubmit button. If you feel that your trainee did not supply sufficient evidence for that particular training activity, by all means, use that resubmission button. That's what it's there for. Don't just tell the trainee, no, do it again, and then put it in their portfolio. No, send it back to them and tell them in your feedback what they need to work on and where they need to improve their evidence. So if I very quickly now go to my trainee's portfolio, I'm going to go back to Bianca's portfolio here, and I'm going to go over to her gap analysis very quickly. If I scroll down to that intro to vascular module, you can see now that it's dark blue around, and I have a green C, which means that the actual training activity has been marked as complete and added towards my progress. And we now are 8% complete in this particular module. So that's one type of submission. The other type of submission that you'll see is a work-based assessment. Now, before we get into the actual work-based assessment, if I go back to my slideshow here, I want to talk a little bit about the work-based assessment standards, which Stuart will very shortly be popping the link into the chat for. The NSHCS work-based standards, these are the standards that we expect all trainees, training officers, and assessors and supervisors to adhere to when completing any type of submission in OneFile and during the training program. We really strongly suggest that, especially as training officers, you take some time to familiarize yourself with these assessment standards so that you can ensure you understand what your responsibility is as a training officer. Can I just ask in the chat if we just hold off on all of the questions until the end of the presentation so that it doesn't distract anybody in the presentation or any of the viewers from missing any of the key information. We'll be happy to field all the questions at the end. The work-based assessment standards, they very clearly lay out the roles and responsibilities of all parties involved in a trainee's training in terms of what's expected of them in the training portfolio and when it comes to creating training activities and signing off on different various types of submissions. So I'd strongly suggest to please take some time to review all of these. Now, one of my work-based assessments here is a DOPS, which stands for a Direct Observation of Practical Skill. The other types of workplace assessments are the, I believe, the OCE. It stands for, I think we've changed the name. I think it's Observed Clinical Event now instead of and we also have the case-based discussion, but we're going to focus on the DOPS today. Observed communication event. Thank you, Stuart. Observed communication event. We're going to focus on a direct observation of practical skill today. Now, before I just get started here, I want to direct you to a little file repository in OneFile called Resources. Now, if I click on Resources, you're going to see a folder here that says Assessor Resources. And if I go to STP Training Officers and then into Work-Based Assessment Marking Forms, every time a trainee carries out a work-based assessment, you as a training officer or assessor are expected to provide to them a feedback form, which you can find in this folder. The trainee should be providing this form to you already filled in, or at least pre-filled in with some information on it before they carry out the assessment. But if they don't, this is where you could find it. And you can see we have different types of mark forms depending on what type of assessment's being carried out and whether the assessment is a rotational assessment or a specialty or core assessment in the core modules, such as the Foundations of Professional Practice in Healthcare Science. So if I pop back over to the vascular rotation, you can see it's a direct observation of practical skill, and this is going to be the vascular rotation infection control assessment. And my trainee has again set criteria under DOPS, apply an appropriate infection control procedure. And the trainee has feedback form provided, please fill in. Now, the trainee didn't actually provide it for me within the submission, although they should. But let's just say the trainee emailed me the feedback form ahead of the assessment. It's also worth noting that these assessments in OneFile should be set up prior to the assessment actually taking place. This is so you and your trainee can agree an appropriate time and date and place for the assessment to be carried out. So the trainee has provided me with an assessment form, which I will just show you how that looks now. And they have very helpfully filled in the top section for me, including their name and my name and the module and the date of the assessment. So let's say that this assessment happened yesterday and it's the appropriate infection control procedure. You can see here that the feedback comes in the form of different domains in which I tell them how they performed in those domains. And I can also add some various feedback. So let's say we had a clear pass. Maintains records appropriately. Okay, assures the quality of, so you go ahead and you tick the boxes that you feel the trainee performed, and these are all explained within the assessment standards. And you can also add your feedback here. Well done. Please consider ensuring your hands are fully dry before touching patient's leg, or something like that. I don't come from the scientific world, so I hope that I haven't embarrassed any of the vascular scientists out there with what I've just written. So I've put my feedback in, and I'm just going to go ahead and save the file to my own desktop here, and then I'm going to close it And effectively, I've observed the trainee carry out the assessment. I filled in the feedback form during the assessment so that so that's all fresh in my mind, and that I'm giving them the best feedback I could possibly give them. If you feel that you want to add any additional feedback, in this particular type of assessment and submission, rather, I would say you don't necessarily need to use the feedback box, because we want all of it to be contained within that feedback form itself. So I'll just write, please see attached feedback form. And you can see here that in my feedback, I can actually add an attachment. So I'm going to click my blue add attachment button. And it actually takes me to my own file library within OneFile. So anything that I upload in terms of feedback for trainees is going to be saved in OneFile, which is great, because then it means I don't have to keep it on my own work computer, which is also great in terms of from an information governance standpoint. So what I'm going to do is select my file here. And then I'm going to go to my folder on my computer where I'm storing this feedback document. I'm going to go ahead and upload it. And if we could just hold off all of the questions till the end of the presentation. So I've uploaded my document. You can see the description I've got in OneFile is taken from the file name, but I can actually rename this in OneFile, and it's just a name in OneFile that I'm giving it. If I go ahead and re-download the document, it'll still have the original file name on it. So I'm just going to say vascular infection control log form. Go ahead and click save, and I just want to make sure that that file is now ticked. And I go back to my green attach button, click attach, and there is my feedback form attached for Bianca. Now, again, I want to sign off on this one to say that it's completely done. So remember, I'm going to go click that box at the top, make it turn a nice, happy dark blue, scroll down to the bottom, tick the box to say, yes, I'm satisfied with what's happened here. Before I go any further, I want to say that it is possible for trainees to fail workplace assessments. And if they do this, that's fine. You can sign this off as a failed assessment by not ticking this box, and that's okay. You still provide all of the feedback form here. You need to do this one again in a few weeks. If it's a failed assessment, it's a failed assessment. Make sure that that is not ticked, or else it will go in as a past assessment and count towards progress. But by putting a failed assessment in their portfolio, it says that we're telling the trainee, you've done it, here's the feedback, we have an official record of it, let's do it again in a few weeks or months. But for now, I'm going to click that box, and I'm going to click save and quit. And I'm not going to show you the portfolio again, because we know that it's been saved and the progress has been added. So those are the two main types of submissions that you will see. Now, in terms of work-based assessments, you're going to see three types of those. As I said before, the DOPS, the OC, and the CBD. I was just focusing on the DOPS for now. Now moving on, I want to show you how to create a training plan in OneFile. Now, when you create a training plan, you just simply go to the trainee's portfolio and click the little light bulb plan. And then to create one, click the blue button. Now, once you're here on this training plan screen, I really have to stress that you have to finish the training plan now. If you don't either finish the training plan or delete what you've done, the trainee will be locked out of their portfolio. And this is, and it does make sense as I scroll down, and I'll show you. So, title of training plan. Let's say we're going to call this training plan November. Let's say October to November 2025. Let's say we have 6 weekly review. We do reviews and training plans every 6 weeks with the training. So we're doing this on the 17th, and we're going to set our next planned meeting, which is our next review. So let's set that for, let's say November 25th. And we have to fill all this in, unless we just don't do that. It's fine. and we'll do a face-to-face meeting in the office. So let's say, here are the tasks I want you to do for the next 6 weeks or so. No task listed here just yet, but I'm going to add a task here. And over the next few weeks, what I want the trainee to work on is, I want them to do a training activity. And I want them to do training activities. If I click Select Outcomes, I'm going to go to my vascular unit here. And let's say I want the trainee to shadow and review. I want to shadow a scientist, and I want the trainee to review some protocol and policy here. So I'm going to click Continue. If I had any reading material for the trainee, then I can add that here using the Attach button. I'm going to click that. Oh, sorry, a description of the task is required. I want you to shadow some staff in the vascular team. Okay. And so now what this is actually going to do is add a submission into the trainee's portfolio in draft mode. So it's going to prepare it for them so that the trainee just needs to navigate to it, add their evidence, and then submit it onto you. Following that, I'm going to tick the box to sign off on this training plan and then click Save. Now, again, it's very important that you actually save the trainee's training plan, or else it sort of puts their whole portfolio in a state in that it's expecting things to be added to it, but hasn't been added yet. So the trainee ends up receiving a message that says you can't do anything until the training plan has been acted on. So now that you've signed the training plan, it will go to the trainee, who can then sign off on it, and then they will be able to act within their portfolio. So if I go to Bianca's portfolio now, you can see that if I go to that vascular module, if I go to the vascular module, you can see that training plan has, I'm sorry, no, you won't see that yet because the trainee hasn't signed the form yet. But when they do sign that form, you can see that P there, shadow a vascular scientist. You can see there's a P without a training activity. The training activity will be dropped in automatically into their portfolio. So that's how you set a training plan if you choose to use that. The last thing I want to show you on trainee's portfolio is the reviews. So if I go to the trainee's portfolio, you can see reviews, and we have none scheduled for the moment. So what a review does is basically looks at when your previous review was and sees, and it sort of creates OneFile will create a summary for you and the trainee to say, here's how far you've come since your last review. Now, obviously, there's no reviews that have been created yet, so the first one you do will look at all of the progress that's been made since the trainee started on their training program. So please be mindful, actually, that the date here is always going to default to the trainee's start date in the system. So make sure that you've got the right date set for this particular review. So let's say I'm now sitting down with the trainee this afternoon, and let's say we have a 2:00 review. Where are we? 2:00, 2:00 there, and we're going to go till 2:30, and it's going to be a face-to-face meeting in our office. And we have a progress review and the assessor, which is me. So if I schedule the review, so that review is then going to drop into the trainee's portfolio. Now, you're having your face-to-face 6-weekly meeting with the trainee, where you're going to review the previous 6 weeks and then work on a training plan for the next 6 weeks, let's say. And as Stuart did mention in the chat, the training plan is not a mandatory function within that you do need to use, but it is there as a helpful tool for you in case you want to track progress. Once my meeting has started, I'm going to click Start. I'll start the review, and what OneFile will give me is, for all of my trainees modules, how much progress have they made since the last review, or in this case, how much progress have they made since they started on the training program. So just in the last few minutes, you can see that with those submissions that we've done, we're now 16% of the way through the vascular science module. And if I click on the vascular science module, you can see that it opens up to all the training activities. I'm going to go back to my review here. It provides for me all of the submissions that have been created and signed off since the last review, any modules signed off since the last review. And, if I want to, I can put in my own review for a trainee in their particular in any particular module. So, we know that the trainee is working on the vascular rotation. So I'm just going to write excellent work to start the program. Looking forward to seeing what you can do in the next few months. Okay, and I'm going to click add, and that's going to get dropped in there as some information for the trainee. If I wanted to leave some general feedback, then I can leave that under review for all units. If I had anything to attach here, then I could do that. If there was anything in particular that I wanted the trainee to look at or to just review once or twice, maybe I have an article for them to review, then I can do that here. And then at the end of it, I tick that I'm happy with the review, and I click save, and then the trainee will get whoops. That's right. I do need to provide feedback. So I'll just again write excellent work in modules so far. Okay. So look, you'll be prompted if there's anything that you've left out. I'm happy with this review, so I'm going to click save. Now there is at least one time during the year where you are required to undertake a review with the trainee, and that is at the review of progression period, which is every September, and you'll receive a lot more information about that around August of next year. So the next time I perform a review, then I will do that, and it will then count the progress made since today. So if I did a review tomorrow, it'll probably say there's 0 progress. But if I do a review in November, might hopefully have another couple of percentage points in the portfolio. One link we actually didn't provide, which I want to point out, is when a trainee does any sort of submission. Let me just go into a trainee's submission here. So I've got the trainee submission list. If I just pop over to the completed submissions, I can go and review any of my trainees' submissions that they've done previously. If I go back to this vascular rotation training activity, you can see that we've got the multidisciplinary team meeting here. Actually, what I'm looking for is a link to the actual training activity itself. There we are. So it's not the words itself, but if you click the number, you can see that it opens up a summary of the entire module for me here in terms of what's expected of the trainee. Now, this is a very brief summary of the module itself. You can learn everything you need to know about all of our modules in the school's curriculum library, which Stuart, I didn't put it on the document, but oh, there he is. He was ahead of me. I'm sure he saw exactly what I was getting at here. So if you go to that link, the curriculum library, you'd click on Scientist Training Program, or if you want to, feel free to review any of the other curriculum we have available. Click on Scientist Training Program and Specialties, and then click the Start Year for your trainee. And then if you just scroll down, you'll find the specialty. And I'm going to go to Vascular Science, and this was the vascular rotation, so SVR1. Now, if I click View, I'm going to get a load of information here that will be really helpful in terms of understanding everything that's required of a trainee. So we've got attend a multidisciplinary team meeting and reflect on the meeting. So if I click on View, I've got even more detail about this one specific training activity. So when you're reviewing the evidence, it will be really helpful to you as an assessor and a training officer to go to the curriculum library to look at all of this information, especially the considerations and the learning outcomes, to judge whether the evidence that's been provided is in line with these considerations and these learning outcomes. So please keep that in mind when you are reviewing any of the evidence that a trainee presents to you. That is all that I had on my schedule, on my review today, on what I planned on reviewing today. Just going to go back to here, similarity scores. key points to take away. Here we are. All right, let's go back to the presentation. So just in summary, before we get into any of our questions, we've got just some information, just some key points to take away from the presentation here. Number one, remember, go back and sign up for your email alerts so you know whenever there's something that that requires your attention. Number two, learn how to sign off a submission. We have, I think Stuart already dropped the link in, our how-to list of how-to videos and documents. One of those is how to sign off a submission. So please take some time to look through all of our guidance videos and guidance documents. You practice using the review meetings during the year. As I said, you will need to record one for the progression review, so it might be good habit to just start getting into a rhythm with your trainee of doing regular reviews. Familiarize yourself with the work-based assessment standards. Don't neglect using that resubmit button that I mentioned earlier, and don't forget to feedback in the submissions. You will notice that once you start leaving feedback in a submission, you can actually go back and forth with your trainee as much as you want in the submission itself. It's not a one-off piece of feedback. There's unlimited amounts of feedback that you can leave within a submission. Obviously, visit the school website for more downloadable guides. You can request additional assessors to be set up for your trainee. It's more that the trainee can request the additional assessors. They've been told how they can do this. There's a form that they need to fill in if there's any additional assessors and supervisors for them. And remember, as a training officer, if there's an assessor that's been requested as a one-off assessor, again, the trainees have been told all of this already, but occasionally a trainee will just request a one-off assessor without receiving permanent access to their portfolio. If they have requested such an assessor that's not already in OneFile, then you will receive a message from OneFile to approve that particular assessor. And I just want to point out, last thing I want to point out is that if your trainee is requesting an assessor and that trainee is an active STP trainee, say in their third year, and you think and you want them to start assessing a first-year trainee, I do have to point out, and this is in the work-based assessment standards, current active STP trainees cannot be assessors for other STP trainees. It's simply not allowed. I know in years past, it was a sort of a gray area, but the school is very firm on this now, that any active STP trainee cannot be an assessor for any other STPs, even if there's 2 days left in their training program. So last thing to say here is we have our help and resources, which you can get from these various links. I believe, I think we've already provided these to you. We've definitely provided the website address to you already in your email with when we contacted you about OneFile. Our service desk is manned by the digital team directly. So if there's any information that you need about OneFile that you can't discover from the OneFile section of the school website, by all means, contact us on that email of england.nshcsdigital@nhs.net. So with that, I am now happy to field any questions that we've got here.
Alex, can I just jump in?
Yes, go ahead.
Let's use the Q&A rather than the chat for questions. So if you look at the top of your screen, everyone, you'll see a Q&A button icon. Please submit your questions there. It allows us to. It also allows you when they're published to upvote them, so we know what the most important questions are for all of you, and I can remove them once they've been answered. So let's move to the Q&A feature to receive questions, please. I'm
just going to scroll back through a couple of the questions here that we'll put into the chat. Can the student add more pieces of evidence to a training activity? Yes. No. Okay, Stuart's been answering these questions very diligently.
Yeah, they're all answered, Alex.
Yep,
let's go over to the Q&A.
Okay.
So if you look under published, Alex, you'll see where they're coming in.
Okay. So on OneFile for the DOPS and OCE, it says to complete one of these, but there's a table with more than one row and all possible DOPS OCEs are listed. How do we cross off those that the trainee has decided not to do? You don't have to cross off the ones they have decided not to do. So if I show you, oh, I cannot show you one that's been completed, but what I'll do is very quickly go to the trainees gap analysis. So the trainee will indicate in their submission which of the DOPS this one is going to be applied to, which is then indicated there. So the trainee indicated apply an appropriate infection control procedure. As they get filled in, now you can see actually that they have completed the requirement of one DOPS or OCE for this particular module, and the rest of them are now X'd out themselves. They can still complete a DOPS, but as far as OneFile is concerned, the requirement is now complete. So they can add further DOPS and OCEs to this module. They just won't count towards progress. And if I scroll to the specialist modules, you can see actually that this one is 2 DOPS and OCEs. We have modules in our specialist cardiac, I believe, is 6 DOPS and OCEs. And you can see that also we've got the CBD. So when a CBD has been complete, that will go that will turn into a C as well. But you can see here that they've already been marked with an X to indicate that no longer needed, but they're still available should the trainee want to complete those. When asking trainees to resubmit evidence with amendments, will this lead to very high Turnitin score on resubmission? So this is kind of why we ask trainees to submit the final version of their evidence into OneFile. I realize now that when you've asked that question, I sort of I sort of contradicted myself when I said use the resubmission function. In an ideal world, I think I'm going to let Stuart take this one as the professional educationalist among us.
No, not really, but I read the Turnitin guidance maybe more than others. It may, and that's not a problem, is the really quick answer, because they'll tell you that, as Alex clearly pointed out, if there's a high similarity score that's justifiable, that's defensible, the trainee just needs to pop it into that free text box to say these documents have already been
Yeah, fair
well,
enough.
and will have already been through Turnitin, and that's only if they are submitting a new document, which is a version of one that was previously through Turnitin. But short answer is it doesn't matter, because as Alex said, it's not a plagiarism tool, it's a similarity. There's some similarities entirely justifiable. I think that's the quickest way to answer that one.
Yep. Just very quickly about Turnitin, I just wanted to reiterate, because I don't think I mentioned it before, the feedback forms that the trainee provides, they've been told to please do not submit their assessment feedback forms to Turnitin, because those will always come back with high scores on them, because they're all the same in terms of format, and also it's personal to them. It's not something that needs to be reviewed against other work. So let's see. Could an active STP do the observation and fill in the DOPS OCE form, but the OneFile then be sent to you for sign-off? STP trainees that are active on the program cannot assess other STPs. It's as simple as that. So no. First STP student in our department, so sorry for the question. It's fine. We like questions. We have one staff member who was assigned a OneFile account. She was on long-term sick leave. Student has been locked out of portfolio as no training plan. Oh dear. Okay. I've completed relevant training to be an assessor, but no OneFile account. Who is best contact? That's a slightly complicated one. If the trainee could please contact us on that service desk address, which they've got, and copy in all the relevant parties on their side so that we can have one big discussion about this. They'll need to tell us all the information about the old training officer who's on sick leave, that basically we need to sort of wheedle our way in and break the door down on a couple of those accounts. And if that's what needs to be done, then that's what needs to be done.
Alex, can you see the two that are in published at the minute?
Yep. Sorry,
Yeah.
they don't seem to automatically refresh on my screen. Stuck in another meeting. I can't see my trainee that started this September. If you can't see your trainee, that there's a couple of reasons why. Number one, they may have given us the wrong email address for you. Number two, you might have duplicate accounts. Number three, they may not have filled in their registration form yet. And if that's the case, then they won't have an account, a OneFile account yet. Again, the best thing for them to do is either you or them contact the service desk with details of who the trainee is and who you are and your email address, etc., so we can look into it. How is progress determined? When I was a trainee, it often didn't reflect my actual expected progress, as was often signed off in large chunks due to the nature of our work. Yes, so okay, that's a good question. So it's almost like a very leading question, and you know exactly what my answer is going to be, Robert. So yes, you can see sort of progress, chunked progress. So as long as the trainee has started to create and curate their work, then you can actually see their progress. So again, if I go to progress here, and I'm going to click on my progress view, there's a setting here that says include pending submissions. Now, if I tick that box there, that will actually show me the progress in that module that includes all of the work that's already been created but not yet signed off or completed by the trainee. So it's almost like if everything that was created has now been signed, this is where our progress would be. And you can see that this module has jumped to 33%. If I untick that box, you'll see it jump back down to 16% because there's other work that's involved in that module that has not yet been either completed by the trainee or signed off by the training officer.
Alex, can I just jump in there?
Yes.
I think there's OneFile provides, these bars in red that you can see. Actually, they're just time. It's a little bit of a misnomer for OneFile to call these expected progress, because, as Robert quite rightly says, things aren't sort of symmetrical and linear always. You do a body of work, that there often people do work in bursts, don't they? Progress is very bursty. Actual effort is very bursty in between, university deadlines and so on. So I don't. It's nothing to get hung up on, and we say that to trainees too. Those red bars are simply time, actually, and of course you should get to 100% in green. That's all the activities. By the time the 100% of time is run out, but they're not anything to get too worried about. The real progress milestones are articulated to you and to trainees via the review of progression process, whereby certain levels of progress are expected to be achieved by the end of year one and by the end of year two. OneFile doesn't actually sort of represent them, so those figures in red are just time, actually.
Thanks very much, Stuart. Stuart Bennett has a question. OneFile account is not yet linked to the trainee. Again, this early on in the program, it could be various different reasons why that is. Your trainee may not have completed their registration form yet. You could have duplicate accounts. It could be any number of things. So get in touch with the service desk with details of the trainee and the training officer and all that. We can look into it. How do I get an assessor login? I completed the STP in September, so valid to assess trainees now. Okay, so if you're, Max, if you completed the STP, if you are named as a training officer for a new STP, then you should, we will give you a OneFile account based on you being a training officer. If you are not yet a training officer, then you could get a OneFile account either by becoming a training officer or being added as an additional assessor and supervisor to another trainee's account, in which case they'll have to let us know. There's a form in the trainee's account that they can use to notify us of a new training officer. Similar, Max, you'll probably be familiar with the form as just being a recent STP yourself. There's a form that trainees need to fill in, and that gets sent. They actually usually get sent to me because I'm first alphabetically in the list of people to send it to. So once they get sent to me, then we undertake the relevant steps at the school to make sure that you're an appropriate assessor. Magdalene has asked, who should I contact to determine if an active HSST can serve as another HSST trainee? It's a related question. You should probably contact Lisa Ayers or Owen Driscoll as the training program directors at the school. They will be best posted to tell you about any questions related to the HSST program. Stuart, you just popped a Learning Hub question link in there. Sorry, you're muted.
I am, yes. It's just a point I want to make right at the very end. Once we've done with all questions, there are no current active questions. So if I can just jump in. The question we often get asked, and it hasn't been asked today, is what makes good evidence? And it is worth saying that we have never published as much information as we now do, as much guidance, if you like, training resources for trainers and for trainees about what makes good evidence. So if you dig in, if you go, we've got all of these little guides for trainers in the NHS Learning Hub. You will find them there, different guides for different types of training activity in terms of what is appropriate evidence. And if you look, actually, this will be another link I'll pop in the chat. We have a bunch of webinars coming up about supporting trainees to develop evidence for example, rotational modules, if they're year ones, for example, specialist modules, if they're years 2 and 3. I'll just pop the events link into the chat. But in terms of events, recordings of events, online resources, that question is answered now so fully, and also answered in some ways in the workplace-based assessment standards, that there's lots for you to go find. And I think it's just quite handy that we flag that up for all of you today. Hang on. Got a few questions coming in. I'll just publish them, Alex, a few quick ones. Let me just see.
Where is the form to add additional trainers? That's in the trainees account. It's not in your account. The trainees are responsible for ensuring their new assessors and supervisors are added into their portfolio. So if a training officer fills out the form, they can request another training officer to have a OneFile account. Again, it's a form that is available to trainees only. And in OneFile, you cannot have another training officer. You can only have one listed training officer for a trainee. If there's a member of staff who can assess several activities but does not need to see the trainee's OneFile account progress, is the expectation to have them as a one-off assessor multiple times. So yes, that would be the expectation. And there's a very specific method in how that can be done. So just to get into some details of how the whole nominated assessor works. When a trainee completes a new submission, they can select as their assessor either their training officer or any of their assessors who are permanently attached to their portfolio. And that's done through that form I was telling you about. If the trainee would rather have this person as a one-off assessor for one particular training activity, and then again, maybe 6 months down the line, then they would use the nomination function within their own submission. And this is all information that's been given to the trainees when they carry out their part of the submission process. When an assessor has access to a portfolio as a training officer or sort of a permanently linked assessor, that assessor can see everything within the trainee's portfolio. basically, OneFile does not discern between who a training officer is and who other assessors are. The nominated assessors, when they come in from one-off submissions, they can see a trainee's portfolio up until the point that they sign off the work, and then they no longer have access to the trainee's portfolio. And I think that's the end of the questions.
Alex, I've just switched the questions off. I'm going to have to head to another meeting. If anybody's got a really urgent final one, we could pop it in the chat. But apologies, folks, but I have to be somewhere else now. But thank you very much for attending today. We're here to help you. Tons of stuff on the website. All the links today provide you with guidance. But any final questions, please pop them in the chat.
Yep. Thank you very much, Stuart. Okay. Yep. So if there's any other urgent questions, and I'll be happy to answer them now. But other than that, just remains for me to say thank you for coming today. Please let your colleagues know who are also training officers that this webinar has been recorded and will be published to our website. So it can be viewed at any point, probably by next week. It'll be available to watch on demand. Please take a look at all of the resources we've given you, because they are very helpful in terms of making sure that your trainee really does make the most out of all of their training on OneFile. Okay, thank you very much. Have a wonderful weekend, everyone. Take care.